This is America in the Morning from Westwood One. Good morning, I'm John Trout. It's Monday, May 26th, 2025, Memorial Day. Here's what's coming up on America in the Morning.
The battle between President Trump and Harvard heats up.
Billions of dollars has been paid to Harvard.
I'm Rich Johnson.
The latest on a massive attack by Russia against Ukraine. And President Trump says he will delay for now a large tariff against the European Union. We'll tell you why.
An American citizen deported back to the United States after allegedly trying to firebomb a U.S. embassy in Tel Aviv. I'm Clayton Neville.
On Wall Street, it's quiet for this Memorial Day holiday. Stocks are coming off a volatile week. I'm Jessica Ettinger.
New details emerge into what may have led to a private plane crash in San Diego. All ahead on America in the Morning. A court order and strong words on social media mark the latest developments in President Trump's battle with Harvard University. Details from correspondent Rich Johnson.
Billions of dollars has been paid to Harvard. How ridiculous is that? Billions.
President Trump in the Oval Office last week when his administration moved to block Harvard's ability to accept new international students.
President Trump is totally justified in his fight against Harvard, withholding federal dollars and ensuring that we are prioritizing the education of American students.
Florida Attorney General James Uthmeier on Fox News. On the other hand, on CNN, Harvard professor Cornell Brooks.
The Trump administration is engaging in a trauma war, a psychological war against students.
Regardless of both opinions, the ban is not happening for now. Boston-based federal judge Allison Burroughs temporarily blocked it on Friday, calling the ban a patent violation of the First Amendment and unconstitutional many times over. She set a Thursday hearing to consider arguments from both sides. Early Sunday morning, Trump wrote on social media he wants the names and home countries of Harvard's international students and claimed that other countries pay nothing for their students' education. In fact, most international students pay their tuition in full and are not eligible for U.S. federal financial aid like Pell Grants. One student caught in the middle is James Meddy of Toronto. He tells the CBC school officials have reached out.
They see a resolve coming in the near future, but we're still unsure of what that means for the summer, even just this upcoming semester. So I have friends that are set to return to campus for research in a week or start their internships at the beginning of June. And it's very unclear if they're going to be able to even begin or if they're going to be allowed back into the country.
Another international student facing an uncertain future, the future Queen of Belgium. The Royal Palace says 23-year-old Princess Elizabeth is waiting to find out if she'll be able to return to Harvard and continue her master's degree studies in public policy. Harvard says 27% of its students are from other countries. In a social media post last week, the school said simply, without its international students, Harvard is not Harvard. I'm Rich Johnson.
Volodymyr Zelensky is denouncing what he's calling the silence from the U.S. and the West after a massive drone and missile strike hit more than 30 cities inside Ukraine, killing at least 12 people. This as both Ukraine and Russia complete a prisoner swap. Correspondent Julie Walker reports hopes for peace between the two warring nations is being questioned by both President Trump and Sweden's defense minister.
You mentioned that you believe Putin wants peace, but he just attacked Ukraine. So what makes you think that he wants peace?
Well, he's in a war, you know. I mean, nobody said don't. They're fighting, they're attacking each other, and people are dying all the time. He's in a war. He's fighting a war. Nobody said he was going to stop. I think, is it terrible? Yeah, it's terrible. I think it's terrible.
It seems quite obviously there's a lack of serious intent on the Russian side on actually engaging into negotiations. Our position is very well known. We focus on supporting more defense equipment and more military support for Ukraine so we can make sure that they can negotiate from a position of strength. That's what it's come down to. So we make sure we get a peace that is good for Ukraine and is long-term and lasting.
Russia and Ukraine exchange hundreds more prisoners Saturday. It's part of a major swap that amounted to a moment of cooperation in otherwise failed efforts to reach a ceasefire. Both countries say each side brought home 307 more soldiers This comes a day after each released a total of 390 combatants and civilians. Hours earlier, Ukraine's capital and other regions came under a massive Russian drone and missile attack that killed at least 12 people and injured dozens. Ukrainian officials said the attack hit more than 30 cities and villages, describing it as the largest aerial assault since Russia's full-scale invasion in February of 2022. I'm Julie Walker.
The top stories of the day are sponsored by Sleep Number. Sleep better with Sleep Number. Now, during the Memorial Day sale, all smart beds and bases are on sale, plus free home delivery, exclusively at a Sleep Number store. The latest on the attempted firebombing at the U.S. Embassy in Israel. When America in the Morning continues after these messages. Welcome back. This is America in the Morning. Where will severe storms impact our Memorial Day? For the answer to that, here's AccuWeather.com meteorologist Matt Rindy.
The southern plains into the southeast will have to pay close attention to the weather for any activities or services on this Memorial Day. A storm and associated stationary front will have a large impact from areas as far north as South Dakota and as far south as Texas, and then continuing eastward through the Mississippi Valley and continuing through Georgia into the Carolinas. These areas will experience some showers and thunderstorms generally, but there will be a considerable risk for heavy gusty thunderstorms in parts of Texas and then eastward through southern Georgia. These storms can produce damaging winds, large hail, drenching rain, and even a tornado. Where the storm does not produce severe weather on the northern fringes, it is also going to be a cool day with highs in parts of the central plains no greater than the 50s and low 60s. It will be much warmer on the southern side of the storm from South Texas along the Gulf Coast and into Florida with highs in the 80s, 90s, and even a few 100s. The rest of the northern plains into the Great Lakes, Middle Atlantic, and Northeast will have a largely dry day, though a few showers cannot be ruled out in parts of New York into Vermont. There will otherwise be some sunshine with afternoon highs in the 60s and 70s. In the northwest, a weak cold front will lead to a couple of showers along the Washington coast into northern Oregon and a few afternoon thunderstorms that could develop farther inland in eastern Washington, Idaho, and western Montana. And there could even be a scattered afternoon thunderstorm or two over the northern Sierra Nevada. That's the weather across America. It will be a nice day in Freedom, New Hampshire with partly sunny skies and a high up to 67. Soldier, Kansas will have plenty of clouds today. It'll be windy and cool with rain and a thunderstorm and a high near 60. That's the nation's weather. I'm AccuWeather.com meteorologist Matt Rindy.
Remember to follow us wherever you get your podcasts. You can listen on your preferred platform when you search America in the Morning in your favorite listening app. The Department of Justice says an American citizen is in custody after allegedly trying to firebomb the U.S. Embassy in Israel. The latest from correspondent Clayton Neville.
The DOJ said in a statement on Sunday that Joseph Neumeier was arrested at JFK Airport in New York. He's a dual American and German citizen. Neumeier was detained last week after being accused of spitting on a security guard outside the U.S. Embassy in Tel Aviv. Neumeier said to have run from security and left his backpack behind. Well, that backpack, according to the DOJ, had 3 Molotov cocktails inside it. Justice Department officials say that Neumeier posted on social media, quote, "Join me as I burn down the embassy in Tel Aviv. Death to America. Death to Americans. And blank the West." He also made threats on social media to assassinate President Donald Trump. Neumeier's arrest comes days after 2 staffers at the Israeli embassy in Washington were killed, leaving an event at the Capitol Jewish Museum. U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi reacted to Neumeier's case, saying the department won't tolerate violence and will prosecute the defendant to the fullest extent of the law. Neumeier was deported to the U.S. by Israeli authorities. He could face up to 20 years in prison if convicted. I'm Clayton Neville.
After the European Union requested an extension on the 50% tariffs President Trump announced last week that were to begin on EU products June 1st, the president said late Sunday he's agreed to postpone enacting those tariffs until July 9th. Trump posted the announcement on Truth Social following a call he had with EU Commissioner Ursula von der Leyen, who said the member nations of the European Union need more time to come to a consensus. Last month, Trump announced a 20% tariff on most EU goods, but later halved it to 10% to allow time for negotiations. On Friday, Trump expressed frustration with the pace of negotiations with the EU and threatened to impose 50% tariffs. Home Depot and Toyota navigate tariff concerns. That When America in the Morning continues after these messages. America in the Morning continues this Memorial Day. The Business Report is brought to you by Fisher Investments. Fisher Investments takes a disciplined approach with investing, helping clients navigate volatile markets. Learn more at FisherInvestments.com. Here's CNBC's Jessica Ettinger.
On Wall Street, it's quiet for this Memorial Day holiday. Stocks are coming off a volatile week. I'm Jessica Ettinger. Wall Street, quiet this morning. The financial markets are closed for the Memorial Day holiday. Stocks are coming off another volatile week last week. This is the final week of May trading. And on Friday, President Trump threatened tariffs against Europe, Apple, and then said maybe all phone makers, so it would be fair. He also signed an executive order to speed up the return of nuclear power in the U.S. Retailers are hoping you'll get out there and shop before you barbecue today. Discounts on the usuals, like summer clothing that was shipped pre-tariffs and grilling and gardening gear. Trying to get some outdoor stuff done this holiday? Well, gardening and lawn care and, of course, grilling. Home Depot reported its first quarterly earnings miss in 5 years last week. But its CFO tells CNBC they intend to generally maintain pricing levels, even with some items costing the chain more because of the Trump tariffs.
Home Depot does source a lot of its cost of sales, so to say, in the United States. Okay, so that protects them. But what's happening here is there's a lot of innovation in home improvement, introducing new, better, more innovative products. Those products are higher priced than the products they're replacing, and they can sort of say bake the tariff in there. So I do think you're going to see some price increases at Home Depot, but I think the company's very well positioned given its domestic sourcing and, frankly, the power Home Depot has over its suppliers, so the suppliers will eat more of these costs.
That's Oppenheimer's Brian Nagel on CNBC. Toyota has redesigned America's #1 selling SUV, the RAV4. It's becoming exclusively a hybrid, and Toyota is trying to figure out how to build it with tariffs on the front burner.
Last year, listen to this, RAV4 sales, 475,000, just over 475,000, almost 500,000, third best-selling vehicle in the United States. A question that they're going to have to resolve is, where do you manufacture this vehicle? It's built in 3 countries, the U.S., Canada, and Japan. The bulk of the production is in Canada, and yes, they'll be able to offset some of the tariffs for vehicles built outside of the country with those coming from Canada. They can't offset the full 25% for the models that are imported from Japan. Just 15% are built here in the United States. Their sales, 51.5% of them are imported models.
CNBC's Phil LeBeau. Hollywood wants you at the movies today and tonight. Might be hard to get in. Looks like Paramount's Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning and Disney's Lilo and Stitch are selling very well. In the week ahead, we get a lot of earnings from retailers like Costco, Burlington, Ulta Beauty, Best Buy, American Eagle Outfitters, and Gap. We also get a big tech earnings report from NVIDIA. And we get the latest on U.S. economic growth, inflation, and consumer confidence.
Looking forward to that. CNBC's Jessica Ettinger. Judge orders the return of a Guatemalan man back to the U.S. When America in the Morning continues after these messages. New details emerge in the investigation into a fatal private plane crash in California that killed 6 people. Lisa Dwyer reports.
While the exact cause of the crash is still under investigation, officials now say that the weather alert system and runway lights were not working at a foggy Montgomery-Gibbs Executive Airport in San Diego when a private jet crashed into a residential neighborhood. The weather alert system was down at the time of the crash due to an unrelated power surge. The pilot instead got weather information from Marine Corps Air Station Miramar about 4 miles north after getting an update on weather conditions from air traffic control in San Diego.
Fixed up the Sierra SoCal. You can make descent okay from there. You want me to turn you out to the south? Yeah, no, I think we'll be all right.
6 people on board the plane were killed. I'm Lisa Dwyer.
A federal judge is ordering the Trump administration to facilitate the return of a Guatemalan man deported to Mexico. Correspondent Donna Warder reports.
Federal Judge Brian Murphy ruled that the U.S. must facilitate the return of a Guatemalan man identified only as OCG, who the U.S. put on a bus and sent to Mexico after a court proceeding had determined that the man, who is gay, risked persecution or torture if returned to his home country. He also feared going to Mexico and presented evidence that while seeking asylum in the U.S., he was raped and held for ransom in Mexico. Court documents show that Mexico has since returned the man to Guatemala, where he's in hiding. Judge Murphy says the man's removal from the U.S. likely lacked any semblance of due process. I'm Donna Warder.
Today is Memorial Day, a day for honoring and mourning the U.S. military personnel who died serving in the United States Armed Forces. The first known observance was called Decoration Day on May 30th, 1868. Congress in 1968 passed the law deeming the last Monday of May as Memorial Day. Singer Billy Ray Cyrus may have summed it up best in his song Some Gave It All with the line, "A few gave a little, a lot gave it all." America in the Morning for Monday, May 26th, 2025 is produced by Jeff McKay. I'm John Trout. This is Westwood One. This is America in the Morning from Westwood One. I'm John Trout. Coming up this half hour.
The big, beautiful bill could get some tweaking in the U.S. Senate. I'm Clayton Neville.
President Trump told the 1,002 West Point graduates,
Mission accomplished. Great job.
Julie Walker, New York.
President Trump has approved major disaster declarations for 8 states, some of which have been waiting for months. I'm Jennifer King.
The Justice Department has reached a deal that lets Boeing avoid prosecution. Sagar Meghani, Washington.
Trump's tariffs could tank stocks in Europe. I'm tech correspondent Chuck Palm.
And a university commencement speaker who made graduates green with envy. Back after these messages. Welcome back. You're with America in the Morning. There will be plenty of backyard grilling today. Where are the rain showers? Here's AccuWeather.com meteorologist Matt Rindy.
The southern plains into the southeast will have to pay close attention to the weather for any activities or services on this Memorial Day. A storm and associated stationary front will have a large impact from areas as far north as South Dakota and as far south as Texas, and then continuing eastward through the Mississippi Valley and continuing through Georgia into the Carolinas. These areas will experience some showers and thunderstorms generally, but there will be a considerable risk for heavy gusty thunderstorms in parts of Texas and then eastward through southern Georgia. These storms can produce damaging winds, large hail, drenching rain, and even a tornado. Where the storm does not produce severe weather on the northern fringes, it is also going to be a cool day with highs in parts of the central plains no greater than the 50s and low 60s. It will be much warmer on the southern side of the storm from South Texas along the Gulf Coast and into Florida with highs in the 80s, 90s, and even a few 100s. The rest of the northern plains into the Great Lakes, Middle Atlantic, and Northeast will have a largely dry day, though a few showers cannot be ruled out in parts of New York into Vermont. There will otherwise be some sunshine with afternoon highs in the 60s and 70s. In the northwest, a weak cold front will lead to a couple of showers along the Washington coast into northern Oregon and a few afternoon thunderstorms that could develop farther inland in eastern Washington, Idaho, and western Montana. And there could even be a scattered afternoon thunderstorm or two over the northern Sierra Nevada. That's the weather across America. It will be a nice day in Freedom, New Hampshire with partly sunny skies and a high up to 67. Soldier, Kansas will have plenty of clouds today. It'll be windy and cool with rain and a thunderstorm and a high near 60. That's the nation's weather. I'm AccuWeather.com meteorologist Matt Rindy.
You can follow us wherever you get your podcasts. Just search America in the Morning in your favorite listening app. There is some Republican pushback over the big, beautiful bill that passed the House last week and is now being considered by the Senate. With an update, here's correspondent Clayton Neville.
Some Republican senators, like Ron Johnson, believe the budget bill will exacerbate the national deficit. He and others, like Senator Rand Paul, argue that the first goal of the budget reconciliation process should be to reduce the deficit. Senator Paul spoke with Fox News Sunday.
I've told them if they strip out the debt ceiling, I'll consider, even with the imperfections, voting for the rest of the bill. But I can't vote to raise the debt ceiling $5 trillion. There's got to be someone left in Washington who thinks debt is wrong and deficits are wrong and wants to go in the other direction.
House Speaker Mike Johnson told Fox News he also wants to cut the deficit.
The national debt is the greatest threat to our national security, and deficits are a serious problem. What I think Rand is missing on this one is the fact that we are quite serious about this. This is the biggest spending cut, Shannon, in more than 30 years.
The House Speaker defended the legislation on CNN's State of the Union and addressed criticism that the bill would cut Medicaid.
We are not cutting Medicaid in this package. There's a lot of misinformation out there.
He told CNN's Jake Tapper Americans impacted are the ones who are intertwined in the administration's effort to cut waste, fraud, and abuse.
What do I mean by that? You got more than 1.4 million illegal aliens on Medicaid. Medicaid is not intended for non-U.S. citizens. It's intended for the most vulnerable populations of Americans, which is pregnant women and young single mothers, the disabled, the elderly. They are protected in what we're doing because we're preserving the resources for those who need it most. You're talking about 4.8 million able-bodied workers, young men, for example, who are on Medicaid and not working. They are choosing not to work when they can. That is called fraud. They are cheating the system. When you root out those kinds of abuses, you save the resources that are so desperately needed by the people who deserve it and need it most.
A preliminary estimate by the nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office claims that some 5 million people could lose Medicaid coverage under the new proposals. Dr. Mehmet Oz with the Centers of Medicare and Medicaid Services told Fox that cutting waste and fraud is needed in the industry. The Senate Majority Leader John Thune believes there will be changes to the bill before it goes back to the House, but thinks it could be passed before the 4th of July. I'm Clayton Neville.
President Trump delivers the commencement address at the U.S. Military Academy at West Point over the weekend, stressing a new era for America's military. Here's correspondent Julie Walker with more.
Wearing his signature red MAGA hat, President Trump told the 1,002 West Point graduates,
"Mission accomplished. Great job."
Congratulating the cadets and himself.
Every cadet on the field before me should savor this morning, because this is a day that you will never, ever forget. In a few moments, you'll become graduates of the most elite and storied military academy in human history, and you will become officers in the greatest and most powerful army the world has ever known. And I know because I rebuilt that army.
Trump focusing his address on military strength, boasting of getting rid of distractions and having the military go back to its core mission.
We're getting rid of the distractions and we're focusing our military on its core mission, crushing America's adversaries, killing America's enemies, and defending our great American flag like it has never been defended before.
But also his speech veering sharply into politics, criticizing his predecessors. Meanwhile, outside West Point, a few dozen demonstrators protested.
You could have done anything you wanted. You could have gone anywhere. You could have gone to any school. This is one of the hardest schools to get into. And writing your own ticket to top jobs on Wall Street or Silicon Valley wouldn't be bad. But I think what you're doing is better. Instead of sports teams and spreadsheets and software, you chose a life of service.
Julie Walker, New York.
Ceremonies were held over the weekend to remember the 5-year anniversary of the death of George Floyd, which led to a number of police reforms. Haya Panjwani reports.
We walked this earth doing everything we supposed to do. We marched. We did everything we could to put people out to do things, to fight for George. Not just George, it was Breonna Taylor, it was Ahmaud Arbery, but we can never give up.
History will record these moments, how we stood up for our children, we spoke up for our children, and we fought for our children to get equal justice.
In the summer of 2020, as the world was just beginning to grasp the COVID-19 pandemic, a video surfaced that would spark a movement like no other.
So on May 25th, 2020, George Floyd, who is a black man from Houston, Texas, was in Minneapolis, where he'd moved to find job opportunities.
Aaron Morrison, the AP's race and ethnicity editor.
And on this day in particular, a store clerk reported that Floyd had allegedly used a counterfeit $20 bill. He was restrained by at least a few officers. One in particular, named Derek Chauvin, knelt on George Floyd's neck and back for over 9 minutes. Floyd was handcuffed to the ground, and while a crowd of people had assembled, essentially demanding that George Floyd be released from the hold, because as a now viral and famous video of the encounter shows, George Floyd repeatedly said that he could not breathe.
I can't breathe.
Noreen Nasser is a video journalist.
And some of that anger then turned into, the images of destruction that we then saw, and then I think got a lot of focus and attention in the media.
Some politicians and social media personalities have called for Chauvin to be pardoned by President Donald Trump.
But if he does, it's really important to note that this won't impact Chauvin's state murder conviction at all. He will still have to serve out the remainder of his state sentence on the murder charges. He would likely have to come back to Minnesota to serve out the rest of his sentence.
I'm Haya Panjwani.
Trump signs state disaster relief, plus tariffs on cell phones. That's when America in the Morning continues after these messages. President Trump greenlit disaster relief for 8 states, assistance that some of the communities rocked by natural disasters in the Midwest have been waiting on for months. Correspondent Jennifer King reports.
The approvals allow communities rocked by recent natural disasters to access federal support through FEMA. Brian Lowry is one of the Mississippi tornado victims who expressed frustration over the delay.
I don't know what you got to do or what you got to have to be able to be declared for a federal disaster area, because this is pretty bad.
Mississippi Governor Tate Reeves says the support will go a long way in helping the state rebuild and recover after 18 tornadoes tore through in mid-March. The president has promised major changes to the agency, saying it responds too slowly, while FEMA's new acting chief has said he plans to push more responsibility onto the states. The new approvals apply in Arkansas, Iowa, Kansas, Missouri, Mississippi, Nebraska, Oklahoma, and Texas. I'm Jennifer King.
One state that's seen a sharp cut from FEMA for disaster aid is North Carolina. FEMA denied North Carolina's appeal to extend 100% cost reimbursement for debris removal, cost sharing related to Hurricane Helene recovery. Governor Josh Stein released a statement blasting FEMA's decision, saying it will now be up to North Carolina taxpayers to foot the bill for hundreds of millions of dollars in storm cleanup. Well, come September, every public school classroom in Texas could be required to display the 10 Commandments under a requirement that passed a key vote in the Texas legislature on Saturday. Senate Bill 10 moved forward despite a federal court ruling that a similar Louisiana law violated a constitutionally required separation of church and state. If the bill is approved by the Texas Senate, Governor Greg Abbott says he will sign it into law. Supporters say that the 10 Commandments and teachings of Christianity are more generally core to U.S. history and believe it should have a place in schools. America in the Morning continues. The Justice Department has reached a deal with Boeing that will allow the jet maker to avoid criminal prosecution for the 737 MAX crashes. Washington correspondent Sagar Magani reports.
The Justice Department has reached a deal that lets Boeing avoid prosecution for allegedly misleading regulators about its 737 MAX before 2 deadly crashes. The accidents, fewer than 5 months apart in 2018 and 2019, killed 346 people. In a court filing, the government says there's a deal in principle that'll require Boeing to pay and invest more than $1.1 billion in exchange for the criminal case being dismissed. Many relatives of those killed on the 737 MAX have spent years pushing for Boeing to be punished. A lawyer for some families said recently his clients strongly opposed dropping the criminal case, saying that would dishonor the memories of the victims Boeing killed through its callous lies. Sagar Meghani, Washington.
President Trump says in a Truth Social statement he would consider a 25% tariff on all imported smartphones. Chuck Palm has details in today's Tech Report.
Trump had released a statement on his Truth Social network threatening on Friday to ratchet up his trade war and pushing for a 50% tariff on European Union goods starting June 1st. He also warned Apple that this would levy a 25% tariff on all imported iPhones brought to U.S. consumers. In a press release, he had this to say.
I'm not looking for a deal. I mean, we've set the deal. It's at 50%. But again, there is no tariff if they build their plant here. Now, if somebody comes in and wants to build a plant here, I can talk to them about a little bit of a delay.
The statement sent global markets into a tailspin after weeks of de-escalation. Trump's slam against the EU was prompted by the White House belief that negotiations in Europe are not progressing fast enough. Later on Friday, Trump told reporters inside the Oval Office that he proposed a tariff on Apple would apply the same to Samsung and anybody that makes products. EU Trade Chief Maro Sefcovic said that the union was fully committed to securing a deal that worked for both sides. For more, find me at chuckpalm.com.
Robert Workman's in with sports on this Memorial Day. Robert?
NBA Eastern Conference Final on Sunday, Game 3 in Indianapolis. The Knicks rallied from down 20 to push past the Pacers 106-100. Karl Anthony Towns took over late, scoring 20 of his game-high 24 points in the fourth quarter. Coach Tom Thibodeau.
I thought we got off to a good start, then we got into foul trouble, and then we finished the half pretty good. And then we were at our best in the fourth, and a lot of guys stepped up.
Indiana still leads 2-1, with the visitors taking every game in the series. Tonight in the West Final in Minneapolis, the Timberwolves try to even things up with the Thunder. The home team has won every game in that one. Stanley Cup Conference Finals out west, Game 3 in Edmonton. The Oilers dazzled the Stars 6-1 to take a 2-1 series lead. Connor McDavid and Zach Hyman each scored twice, while Stuart Skinner stopped 33 shots on. Tonight in the East Finals, the Panthers host the Hurricanes in Game 4. Florida going for the sweep that would put them back in the Stanley Cup Finals. 3 big car races on Sunday. Lando Norris won the Monaco Grand Prix from the pole. 3-time IndyCar champ Alex Palou took the checkered flag at the Indy 500 for the first time. And Ross Chastain won the Coca-Cola 600 in Charlotte last night after starting last in the 40-car field. Baseball, the Tigers shut out the Guardians 5-0 behind the 2-hit pitching of Tarek Skubal, his first complete game in the majors. Marlins blanked the Angels 3-0. Edward Cabrera and company combined on a 3-hitter. The Rays bludgeoned the Blue Jays 13-0. Ryan Pepio and the Pepper Pots with a 4-hitter. Brandon Lau went deep for the third straight game. Tampa Bay has won 5 in a row. Cardinals ding the Diamondbacks 4-3. Arizona has dropped its last 5. A's edge the Phillies 5-4, ending their 11-game slide and the Phils' 9-game winning streak. That's Monday Sports.
Thank you, sir. $50,000 for your college degree, and you get a puppet delivering your commencement speech. That's when America in the Morning continues after these messages. You're with America in the Morning. A record-breaking Memorial Day weekend at the box office. Kevin Carr has details.
If Barbenheimer was the juggernaut 2 years ago, now we have Mission Lilo Possible, the final stitchening.
I need you to trust me one last time.
Disney's live-action remake of Lilo and Stitch topped the holiday weekend with a whopping $146 million for the 3-day and an estimated $183 million by the end of today.
We are not keeping this thing.
Ohana means family. Family means nobody gets left behind.
This is the biggest Memorial Day weekend gross ever, beating out 2022's Top Gun Maverick and only slightly behind the record 4-day President's Day gross of Black Panther in 2018.
This explains the handcuffs. It's still not clear why he's here.
Coming in a distant yet mighty second was Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning, with $63 million for the 3-day and an estimated $77 million through Monday.
I have no regrets.
This is the best opening for the franchise, though the estimated $400 million budget will be a challenge to clear.
So, which one of you is next?
Last week's champ, Final Destination Bloodline, scored an impressive $19 million for the 3-day and $25 million for the 4-day.
Look at you. So adorable.
Fourth place belonged to Thunderbolts with $9.5 million for the weekend and $12 million through the holiday.
Listen here, this ain't no house party.
Finally, in fifth place, Sinners is still filling seats, earning $9 million for the 3-day and $11 million through tonight. I'm Kevin Carr.
College commencements continue around the nation, with many of the keynote addresses coming from famous people, including President Trump, who gave speeches at both West Point and the University of Alabama. However, as correspondent Donna Warder reports, one commencement address, this one at the University of Maryland, certainly left their college graduates green with envy.
The commencement speaker at this year's University of Maryland graduation ceremony was Kermit the Frog.
As I look out at you students, I can tell that you have all worked your tails off. And as a former tadpole, believe me, losing your tail is a pretty big deal.
The university told students in March that Kermit would be delivering the commencement address. Muppets creator, the late Jim Henson, graduated from Maryland in 1960. Kermit, who's been around since 1955, had some advice for graduates.
Rather than jumping over someone to get what you want, consider reaching out your hand and taking the leap side by side, because life is better when we leap together.
I'm Donna Warder.
Thank you, University of Maryland. Thank you for having me. And congratulations to the class of 2025. Yay!
Memorial Day, set aside to honor those who died while serving in the U.S. military, a time for reflection, remembrance, and expressing gratitude for those who paid the ultimate sacrifice. America in the Morning for Monday, May 26th, 2025 is produced by Jeff McKay. I'm John Trout. This is Westwood One.